1. Essentially, there's something following me. It's kind of easier if I explain from a few years ago. Since I was young, there's been a shadow in the corner of my room. Now, this shadow is black and tall. When I say black, though, I mean black. There's a street light outside my window that lights up my room, and this corner stays black. I suppose sometimes it can have a humanoid shape to it, but most of the time it's just tall and black. This shadow has never really bothered me, a bit ominous, I suppose, but not truly scary. But my family hate it. They hate my room because they hate the corner where the shadow is. They always say they have a bad feeling from it. When my 3-year-old nephew stays over, he always says he's scared because of the monster. We always ask, what monster? Where is it? He always says my room and in the corner. Now, he's never heard of my corner shadow, so it was strange he mentioned it. Now, the shadow in the corner isn't my issue, I don't think. I don't think that's what's following me. It's something else. Everywhere I go, that I stay overnight, it's there. My boyfriends, my sisters, my aunties, all the houses I've stayed at whilst doing a dog-sitting job. It is there. The only way I can describe it is a man. It's tall, over 6'5". I never see its body, but always its face. A man's, old, around 60-ish. It has on a woman's wig, though, like an old woman's wig, short and permed. I feel it's definitely a man, but wearing women's things. It always leans over my bed and gets close to my face. It always smiles. Not a nice smile. A smile like it's trying to scare me. The first time I saw this thing was around 10 years ago in my room at my mother's house. It loomed over my bed, bent down, and smiled. The reason I mentioned the shadow in my room earlier was that when the man first came, the shadow wasn't there. The shadow has been there for as long as I know, but was gone that night. It came back the night after, and whenever I'm at my mum's house, the man never comes. I feel like the shadow is protecting me, even though my family says there's something wrong about my corner. The shadow never follows me, though, but the man does. My worry is, I've just bought a new house. I'm moving out of my room at my mum's, and I just know the man is going to follow me. I don't want it to. I'm safe at my mum's with my corner shadow. The shadow can't follow me, I don't think. Is the man the shadow? Is that why my family say there's something off with the corner of my room? Or is the man different from the shadow? Does anyone know what this man could be and why it follows me? How do I stop it from following me into my new home? 2. Please do forgive me, but my blood is pumping and I'm looking for, I don't know, advice? Maybe someone to tell. I work at a hospital in the small town of Salem. Throughout most of my time there, I have heard little footsteps and little creaks, as if someone was walking on the floor. Today, though, I actually saw a figure. The hospital still has the old part, as we call it, that was made in the time of the 1900s. Every so often you have to go pull trash from all levels of the old part. The hallways are, best I can describe, a T-shape. I was at the bottom and had gotten to the point where I could go left or right. I looked left to see someone poking their head out. Due to the third level being much older, the floor had a tendency to creak when you walked on it, so I presumed it was one of the directors or assistants looking out to see what the noise was. I didn't think anything of it, so I went straight down to the end of the hall to grab the trash, and proceeded to walk back into the middle of the hallway. As I got there, I tossed down the trash, looked up, and had seen the figure was still poking its head out from one of the rooms. As I started to walk down that way, because there was trash down there too, I got much closer to the figure, and I started to realize that there were no facial details to it. It was nothing but pure black in the shape of a head. It should also be added that it was around 5 today, so the sun was still up. and it was really sunny, so it threw me off a little bit that I couldn't make out any facial details in the sunlight. I got within, I'd say, 10 feet of the figure, and it ducked back into one of the offices, so I went to the room, knocked on the door, looked in, and there was absolutely no one in there, except for a couple desks and some chairs. For the rest of the night, there were no issues whatsoever. But as I got to the elevators to go up to the first floor to get across the bridge, I heard a whisper. It's hard to describe how to put this, but I could tell it was speaking to me. But I couldn't make out the words. I turned around to see the black figure. I sat there looking at it for several minutes, unsure of what to do, think, or say. So I walked towards it, and it ducked back behind the corner, so I walked up to where it was, and down a 10-foot hallway. It was around another corner, so I ran to that corner, and as you turn right, there is about a 50-foot hallway before the next corner. And as I got to that corner, the black figure was at the other end of the hallway, poking its head out. I sat there frozen. I'm unsure of what to do, and trying to figure out how it ran 50 feet before I can run 10 feet. Eventually, it had moved to whatever it was back behind the corner. So I went to security, where there were several camera angles looking at where I was. I told him to replay the footage, and what annoys me most is the fact that it only shows me running around, but does not show the black figure. I am beginning to question if I am seeing things hallucinating, or if I actually saw something. I'm completely unsure of what to do right now. 3. So it's 4:15 a.m., and I'm officially never sleeping with the lights off again. At least for tonight. Around 3 weeks ago, I stayed with my parents in the family home where I grew up. I never experienced anything weird or spooky myself, but remember Mum would occasionally bring up that she thought the upstairs was a little off now and then. I stayed in the bedroom that I slept soundly in for thousands of nights as a kid. Then this thing happened that I can't explain. I'll preface by saying I'm still very much a skeptic, and the idea of posting spooky stories is kind of funny to me, and I welcome any and all ideas or thoughts. Trying to figure this one out. So this one night, 3 weeks ago, I woke up at around 4 a.m. I often wake up in the night, so didn't think anything of it. I turned over onto my side, and as I did so, I saw something out of the corner of my eye at the far left-hand side of the bed. A dark figure with what seemed to be a gas mask. Cliché as fuck, right? Was bending down, staring right at me. But he wasn't still. He seemed to be moving forward or leaning back and forth. I didn't freak out at first, and instead looked away and blinked a few times. Looked back and holy fuck, he's still there staring at me. I nipped out of that and turned on the light, which naturally made him disappear from my sight. I didn't sleep much that night, and spent ages thinking of what it could be. Awkwardly told my mum and girlfriend the next morning, and they seemed bemused, but helped me rationalize it. Fast forward to tonight, now. I'm typing this out at 4:20 a.m., after I woke at 4:15. Exact same thing happened. I woke up, turned to my side, and boom, gas mask dude. This time I proper freaked immediately. I could feel my heart racing. Even as I type this, I'm intermittently looking around my room. He was in the same spot, more or less, looking right at me, leaning in. Almost like he was swaying back and forth once more. I reached for the light, but did the same blinking and looking away first just to confirm. Yep, he's still there in the same place. Didn't travel with my eyes, etc. Light on. Netflix booted up on laptop. An ancient combo which will obviously save my soul from spooky gas mask man. I know this isn't a night terror or a dream, as I was fully awake and moving when I saw him on both occasions. It's so difficult to describe him, though. Like a shadowy figure. But I could make out the gas mask, but not many other details. My grandparents are in the guest room tonight, and next time I visit I will 100% be taking that room. Once again, I welcome any form of feedback. Whether this is all in my head or really paranormal, I just want to get to the bottom of this. 4. All my life, I've dealt with paranormal experiences. I head back home this week because my school quarter ends this Thursday. Anyways, my mom's current house and my dad's house split. They both had their fair share of paranormal activity. In my mom's house, since I lived there longer, I experienced way more over there. In my first bedroom, my cabinet would open on its own randomly. And it's not easy to open or close. Like to open it, you need to have some strength. But randomly at night it would open. So if I wake up from my sleep, I'll see the top cabinet for my closet open. Another experience is always seeing a girl standing in the corner, which is at the foot of my bed. Eventually my brother moved out for college, so I got his room. I told my oldest brother about my issue in my first bedroom, so we put a camera in. We only saw and heard 2 different things, but on multiple occasions. First is orbs, not just 1 or 2. Sometimes it would be more than 3 or 4 flying around the room, and with the volume fully up, it sounds like faint footsteps inside the room. And lastly, probably the scariest thing caught on camera was only a noise. It was the sound of the cabinets in the kitchen opening and closing loud and fast. Keep in mind, no one was home at the time. In my brother's room, my new room, I experienced some other things. First, random things would drop in my room, and when I get up to look, nothing is on the floor. Second, when I'm going to sleep, I hear footsteps coming from my TV to the side of my bed, but I'm unable to move. I'm assuming sleep paralysis. On another occasion, I had sleep paralysis, but I could open my eyes and see a girl walking towards me. Then all of a sudden, I was able to move when she got inches away from me. Lastly, I hear a whispering. So this probably messes with me the most. One example of this, I hear random whispers in a nice dream. All of a sudden, the dream turns dark. I wake up and continue to hear the whispers, and I'm looking around my room, but no one is there. It usually lasts a few seconds after waking up. But at the moment of hearing the voices, I am unable to hear anything else besides an inaudible whisper. Since I've moved out for college, my oldest brother and mother have also experienced and seen what they assume are ghosts. My mom hears something drop in my room, and sometimes hears a kid running up and down the hallway. My brother, on the other hand, who, keep in mind, is very scared of anything paranormal, since I've moved, he would hear running in the hallway, cabinets in my first room opening and closing in the middle of the night. He has also seen a big black figure in my mom's room. Now, my dad's house. This is where I sleep when I come back from college, but I don't like sleeping there alone. From a feeling standpoint, that house just feels evil to me. My brother has also had a friend who is more sensitive to this type of activity. When he went into the house, he just felt scared walking through the house. Like he has been in my mom's house and can be in that house no problem, but he now refuses to go back to my dad's house. Which I understand because what I have gone through there messes me up. At that house, what I normally hear are things dropping in the kitchen and a knocking on the door entrance at night. Other things I hear there is running in the house. Not a light running like a child, but a full, heavy guy sprinting through the house. Something else is seeing actual shadows of feet outside my door, like seeing a dark shadow under the door. Lastly is seeing a black figure in the bathroom, which sucks because I use the bathroom a lot. Although the activity I experienced at my dad's house is not on the same level as my mom's house, the presence alone just makes me feel so uneasy. But the one thing that messes with me the most is all this activity only happens when my dad is not home. Like if he comes home late or he goes out for the week on business. These are just some things that I've gone through. My very first house, under the age of 13, probably has the most stuff happen, but nothing crazy. I'm curious to know what you guys think of my experiences. What do you think should be done? Both houses were blessed when first purchased. At least that's what my parents told me. I also forgot to add, I have seen the same girl throughout my entire life. But the girl I've seen in my front room is different than the one I normally see. Even now in my apartment I see the same girl. I've been told she is my protector, or just the spirit who took a liking to me and attached herself to me. 5. I don't have a single event to share, more of a plagued family history. My great-grandparents and their families would participate in seances. My grandfather told me there was a seance where the table they were sitting at lifted and aggressively chased his uncle into the corner of the room, and the table banged against the wall trying to fit into the corner he was in. He told me his aunt also practiced this cursed spell ritual, whatever you want to call it, called wedding supper. He was very vague on the details on what they would do, I think on purpose. The purpose of a wedding supper is that by the end of it, you'll find out who the man you're supposed to marry is. She did it, and her current boyfriend came to her home late at night in an unresponsive haze. He ate a meal, pulled his pocket knife out, set it on the table, went out the back door. They eventually married years later, and he found the knife in her possession. She asked him if he remembered leaving it with her that night. He said that the night he lost that knife, the only way he could describe it, is he went to hell and back and never told anyone about it. A week later he killed her with that pocket knife. When my grandfather was a teen, the family was no longer entertaining these activities. One winter, him and his older brother went out into the shed at night. He said it was snowing hard. I believe from him recalling this story to me a few times now over the years that he and his brother were intentionally looking for trouble. He always avoids telling me what they were doing out there. It happens teenagers are blind with curiosity. In the shed, a humanoid figure appeared to them with big yellow eyes and goat horns. In a mocking voice, the creature said, "I'm gonna get you, boys." They ran home out of fear and never saw anything or searched for that kind of trouble again. My grandfather will tell you now that thing did indeed get them. Years went by, my grandfather and great-uncle had their own families, were both preachers and missionaries, leading people to the Lord. Ironic. My mother recalled her troubles back to childhood, seeing ghosts, spirits, entities, whatever. When she was in her teens, she told me, they were living in a trailer park and she pulled in one night. She said in front of her was the kitchen window and my grandma was there doing the dishes. Suddenly, she saw something move next to the window. She focused, and it was an extremely tall figure, given that its shoulders were level with the kitchen window of the trailer on stilts. Big glowing eyes and goat horns. Rest of him dark, and it pointed to the window and said, "I'm gonna kill her." My mom was frozen there until she came to her senses and slammed on the horn. The thing disappeared in a split second around the trailer. My grandfather came out and got my mom. My mom didn't have to say much. My grandfather, grandma, uncle, and mother all knew something was wrong. There was an uncomfortable feeling in their home that evening. They prayed in the living room together for a bit, and then suddenly they all looked up at each other at the same time as they all felt the dread in their home lift off them like a weight. My grandmother is still alive. Unfortunately for my mother, her troubles never ceased. I grew up in a military family. We moved often, and my mother was so fearful that she would pick where we lived every time based off of whether she felt spirits in the home. It didn't seem to matter whether the house seemed to be clean or not, something was always happening to her. My mother would wake up with comforters wrapped around her head, hear voices, and see ghosts. One that she saw that stuck with me. Little dainty man that would run back and forth down the hall to my bedroom and to her in the living room. She said he would show up in the living room late at night. She never looked directly at him. She would pretend he wasn't there out of fear. And she said he would stand staring at her 5 minutes at a time before running back down the hall. She called him the nice one. Over the years, these happenings began to take a toll on my mother. She was in fear constantly, and talking about it seemed to induce more fear, and she turned to drinking. At 37 years old, she died. Drank herself to death. Keep in mind, my family became quite distant over the years. The reason my grandfather will say that creature him and his brother encountered did indeed get them is thus. My grandfather and his brother reconnected some time before my mother's death. My great-uncle also had a daughter that died 2 years before because of drinking. My great-uncle said he believed his daughter to be tormented by spirits, but she refused to speak on it. My grandfather believes he and his brothers somehow cursed themselves that night, and their daughters paid the price. I have not had any strange encounters. I've had a couple horrible sleep paralysis episodes, which can be argued as a paranormal encounter, but to each their own. I'm thankful I don't seem to be plagued with this, but always a little fearful of it. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 180. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. One of those mellow recording sessions for me today. The kind where I do the bulk of my recording the day before I really need to do it. So that means the next day I've got a lot less to do, which usually means I get done earlier, which means more toe wiggling time. Essentially what I'm doing right now as my throat is feeling less tight, and when it does feel tight it seems to ease off quicker, so I think that's a good sign. Whatever little bug I've picked up it's had its way with me, and hopefully it's getting better. Still, even though it may not be the thing that's going around, I'm still gonna just stay away from people for a while, and quite frankly, for their good as much as mine, and I probably won't be leaving the house much until this all blows over. So, home deliveries, and thank goodness we live in an age now where you can get groceries delivered, and I'm very fortunate. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again, because I'm always so grateful that you guys have put me in a position where I can do my job from home, and most of my bills can actually be paid online now. Actually, I had to pay my rent earlier in the week. It was about that time, so I did that just by paying it online, which I don't usually do. I usually like to go pay it in a shop, but it is a bit more convenient paying it online, so I might stick to that in future. I mean, you get a receipt and everything with it anyway. Although I will say lots of people are getting the idea of having your groceries delivered, because it used to be with like Tesco, you could go either like the day before you wanted your groceries, place your order, or sometimes if you ordered it early enough in the day, you could actually get a delivery slot for much, much later at the end of that same day, if you were lucky. Yet now they've got nothing for 10 days, which, well, yeah. And it looks like people have caught on to my little secret, my little survival secret of ordering your groceries through Amazon Prime Now, which isn't available in every location, but it is available in the UK. And I'm going to stop there, because Amazon neither needs me to nor pays me to do adverts for them, but it's a service I use, so there we go. Okay, I think that's enough rambly freezer now. I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.